Okay, this is going to be a short introduction to America's founding myths. Very important, let's start with the frontier. So, the word frontier can mean a region at the edge of a settled area. So, it's a transition zone where explorers, pioneers, and settlers were arriving. And this line, this frontier, will move from east to west. For Turner, this unlimited free land in the West offered the psychological sense of unlimited opportunity. So it brought optimism and potentiality. And beyond it, beyond this imaginary line, it's the wilderness, which is another concept. It's a natural environment that hasn't been modified by any human activity. So, let's have a brief recap of US history. First date to write down is 1620. The Puritans arrive aboard the Mayflower and settle the first colony. Now, they weren't the first to try, okay? The first immigration was in 1607, but it failed. And so the founding settlement, la colonie fondatrice, was in 1620. And they survived mainly thanks to the Indians who taught them how to grow food. For example, they taught them that they could grow wheat with fish. And so at Thanksgiving, they thank God for having helped them survive. And maybe they ought to be thanking the Indians, because in fact, there were probably around 100 Puritans, but there were thousands of Indians in the area, and they could easily have killed them. They didn't. They helped them survive and settle. More and more settlers arrived and started building forts. And so these forts are actually the imaginary line, the frontier, okay? And beyond, it's the wilderness. The English had actually sworn they wouldn't go beyond a certain limit in 1763, but after independence was won in 76, they didn't respect the deal. By 1890, it's the end of the frontier. Okay, all the land is being discovered. It's also worth mentioning the Louisiana Purchase. Okay, if you have a look at the image, that's what it was. It was this big chunk of land in the way. And so actually they bought the Louisiana Territory from France in 1803. And the US paid 15 million francs and a cancellation of debts worth 80 million francs, so for a total of 68 million francs. So at the time, it was approximately 4 cents per acre, and this doubled the US territory. This corresponds roughly to 13 different states today. So, who were the Puritans? Well, they were people who rejected Catholicism and the Anglican Church, mainly because they rejected hierarchy and advocated for a return to the Bible. Ok, il faut garder en tête que l'Église anglicane et le catholicisme, c'était des systèmes très hiérarchisés. D'ailleurs, on ne lit pas la Bible, elle est prédigérée par un clergé qui ensuite l'enseigne au catéchisme, par exemple. Et ça, c'est quelque chose que les puritains rejetaient. Le pape n'était pas vu comme une figure sainte, c'était vu comme un dévergondé, corrompu, qui buvait et couchait à tout va. Voilà l'image qu'ils avaient du pape. So the Puritans want to go back to the word of the Bible. They want to go back to reading the Bible, and they are against hierarchy. They want elections. So this is interesting from the Puritans because this is sort of the beginning of the idea of a democracy. Of course, they were persecuted in Europe for being dissidents and anti-monarchists. Petite parenthèse pour ce qui se passe en France. L'édit de Nantes en 1598 sous Henri IV stipule que tout le monde peut exercer sa propre religion. Et de fait, Henri IV était protestant, il s'est reconverti au catholicisme pour son mariage et l'accès au trône, mais il conserve une tolérance envers les dissidents. Et c'est d'ailleurs lui qui a dit « Paris vaut bien une messe ». Par contre, un siècle plus tard, à Louis XIV, en 1685, le révoque et il n'y a plus de tolérance envers les religions dissidentes. Okay, back to English. And so the last thing you could bear in mind is that they identified with the Jewish people of the Old Testament, who were enslaved in Egypt until Moses sets them free and leads them to the land of promise. You can guess what the land of promise is for the Puritans. And yes, so this is part of the American dream. The West is the manifest destiny. Okay, America is seen as paradise on earth. They think it's virgin territory, so the wilderness, versus an old, corrupted Europe. Of course, it wasn't virgin territory at all because Indians were there, okay? This is a denial of reality. And so, of course, if you've got a paradise on earth, you also have the new Adam figure. The new Adam is a prelapsarian Adam, so a major symbol of innocence. Of course, because it's prelapsarian. Prelapsarian Adam, c'est l'Adam d'avant la chute. On est dans une représentation d'un Adam qui n'a encore jamais péché, donc vraiment un degré d'innocence fou. Okay, so of course, America is a land of projection and religious ideology. So this is how you should see the conquest of the West. It's both historical, okay, but it's also ideological. Of course, the American dream is inseparable from its failure, and actually, it was sullied by three main events. First, of course, crime against the Indians. Okay, they were probably 9 million when the settlers arrived, and today we only count 2,000 approximately. Secondly, of course, the crime against Black people. So, with these two first crimes, the myth of innocence slightly falls apart, I'm afraid. The last point is, of course, industrialization and the end of the frontier. So, this happens mid-19th century with the arrival of cars, railways, iron, oil. So, this, of course, is in complete opposition with a virgin land of opportunity and an agrarian vision of America. However, to conclude, we have to say that it is still a dynamic force nonetheless. Because even if it's an illusion, even if it was based on a form of denial, and even if it has its limits, the American dream carried within itself a dynamic and fundamental force. First, it carried within itself the origins of democracy, okay? So that refers to what we were saying at the beginning of the video about the electoral system the Puritans wanted. And last of all, a strong work ethics, okay? In the US, social progress was seen as a sign of election by God, which is something we even notice on $1 bills. It's written, "In God we trust." Okay, money has a positive connotation, is linked to work, and work is linked to success, and success is linked to a divine recognition. The American dream is even rooted in the Declaration of Independence, which proclaims that all men are created equal with the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Think of President Truman, okay? He was selling ties when he was in his 30s. Okay, so as you can see, American myths have shaped America just as much and maybe more than history has.